In the peaceful village of Aragon, Tomowa was known for his strength and obedience to his family's ways. His father, Chief Olewu, was a respected leader who upheld strict traditions. Among these rules was a firm prohibition: no dealings with the Adibeo clan. Tomowa spent most mornings at the riverbank, where he helped his family's workers fetch water. On this particular day, as the sun rose over the village hills, he spotted a figure by the far side of the river, the side no one dared cross. Iwatami, an orphan raised by the rival Adibeo chief, often came to the river to escape her household's constant quarrels. She enjoyed the solitude, but today she felt uneasy, sensing someone watching her. Their eyes met across the water, and time seemed to halt. Tomowa knew he should look away, but something about her held him captive. Iwatami, equally transfixed, wondered why the sight of this stranger filled her with a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Suddenly, a loud call echoed from the Adibeo side. "Iwatami, where are you?" She quickly turned and fled, leaving Tomowa staring after her, heart pounding. He knew this was trouble, but he couldn't stop himself from wanting to see her again. Days turned into weeks, but Tomowa couldn't forget the girl by the river. Her presence lingered in his thoughts, even as he walked in the fields and joined his brothers in the village meetings. He knew this obsession could lead to trouble. Iwatami felt the same unrest. Every time she passed the river, she half expected to see the stranger again. She scolded herself for being foolish. How could she, an Adibeo, think about someone from the Olewu family? Their families had been enemies for decades. One quiet afternoon, Tomowa returned to the riverbank. He didn't expect to see her, but there she was, collecting water in a clay pot. He hesitated, but something in him refused to turn back. "You came," he said softly. Iwatami froze at the sound of his voice. She looked up, and their eyes locked again. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If anyone sees us," her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. "I don't care," Tomowa said firmly. "I just want to know your name." Iwatami hesitated, but then she whispered, "Iwatami." Before they could say more, distant voices called her name, and she hurried away, leaving Tomowa wanting more. Tomowa returned home with Iwatami's name echoing in his mind. His younger sister, Aduk, noticed his distracted demeanor. "What troubles you, brother?" she asked. Tomowa shrugged, but deep inside, he knew he was treading on dangerous ground. Iwatami's guardians, the Adibeo elders, were suspicious of her recent absences. Chief Adibeo questioned her directly. "Where have you been disappearing to, Iwatami?" She avoided his gaze, mumbling something about fetching water. The chief's eyes narrowed. That night, Tomowa overheard his father, Chief Olewu, discussing tensions with the Adibeo clan. "They cannot be trusted," his father said sternly. "No one from this family must ever cross their path." Tomowa's guilt weighed heavily. Iwatami sat by her small window, staring at the moonlit sky. She knew meeting Tomowa again was reckless, but her heart rebelled against reason. His words, his presence, they stirred emotions she had never known. The next morning, both Tomowa and Iwatami made secret vows to return to the river, despite the growing risks. Unbeknownst to them, eyes from both clans were beginning to watch their every move. At dawn, Tomowa made his way to the river. This time, he was careful, staying hidden behind tall reeds. Iwatami arrived minutes later, glancing nervously over her shoulder before stepping closer to the water. "I didn't think you'd come," Tomowa said, stepping out from his hiding place. Iwatami jumped, nearly dropping her clay pot. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice a mix of fear and relief. "I had to see you," he replied. "I don't understand it, but I can't stay away." His words touched something deep within her, but she shook her head. "This is madness," she whispered. "They'll kill us if they find out." Tomowa reached for her hand, and for a brief moment, she allowed it. "I'll protect you," he said firmly. But the sound of rustling leaves nearby made them pull apart. They weren't alone. "Who's there?" a voice demanded. Tomowa and Iwatani froze as a young boy from the Adibeo clan emerged from the bushes, his eyes wide with shock. "Wait," Tomowa pleaded, but the boy turned and ran. Tomowa and Iwatani exchanged panicked glances. The boy had run to alert the Adibeo elders, and time was running out. "You have to leave now," Iwatani whispered urgently. "If they find you here, it will be over." "I won't leave you here alone," Tomowa insisted, his voice firm. But Iwatani pushed him toward the trees. "Go. I'll explain if they ask." Reluctantly, Tomowa disappeared into the thick bushes, his heart pounding with dread. Moments later, 2 Adibeo guards arrived, questioning Iwatani. "We heard someone was here," one said. "Who was it?" Iwatani feigned ignorance. "I saw no one," she replied, holding her breath. They scanned the area but found nothing. Meanwhile, Tomowa ran as fast as he could, not stopping until he reached the safety of his family's farmland. His chest heaved with exhaustion, but his thoughts were only of Iwatani. He couldn't let her face this danger alone. That night, Iwatani was summoned by Chief Adibeo. "Why were you at the river again?" he demanded. She lowered her head, avoiding his piercing gaze. "I only went for water," she lied. But the chief's suspicions grew stronger. Tomowa couldn't sleep. The image of Iwatani, standing vulnerable by the river, haunted him. He knew he couldn't stay away, but returning to her now would be a greater risk than ever before. Iwatani, too, was restless. The guards' questions had rattled her, but her heart longed for the safety she felt in Tomowa's presence. "Why can't I stop thinking about him?" she muttered to herself, staring at the dark ceiling. At the Olewu household, Aduk noticed her brother's turmoil. "You've been acting strangely," she said, cornering him after dinner. "Are you hiding something?" Tomowa hesitated but shook his head. "It's nothing," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. The next day, Chief Olewu called a family meeting. "The Adibeo clan is becoming restless," he said. "We must be vigilant. No one from this household is to interact with them under any circumstance." Tomowa felt a cold sweat break out. Iwatami's guardians, too, tightened their restrictions. She was forbidden from going to the river alone, but her determination to see Tomowa only grew stronger. In the dead of night, she made a bold decision: she would find him. Under the cover of darkness, Iwatani left her compound. Her heart raced as she crept through the village paths, avoiding the guards' patrols. She knew the risks but couldn't ignore the pull drawing her back to Tomowa. Tomowa sat by the edge of the Olewu farmlands, staring at the moonlit fields. He hadn't seen Iwatani in days, and the silence felt unbearable. He was about to return home when he heard soft footsteps behind him. "Tomowa," Iwatani whispered, emerging from the shadows. His eyes widened in shock. "Iwatani, what are you doing here? It's too dangerous." She stepped closer, her face determined. "I had to see you. I couldn't wait any longer." Their reunion was brief, as Tomowa quickly realized they could be discovered at any moment. "We can't stay here," he said, pulling her toward a safer spot under a cluster of trees. "If anyone sees us, it will be the end." Iwatani nodded, though fear gripped her. For the first time, she truly understood the stakes of their forbidden bond. "What are we going to do?" she asked. Tomowa looked into her eyes and said, "We'll find a way, together." The next morning, rumors began to spread. A village boy claimed he saw someone sneaking out of the Adibeo compound at night. The news reached Chief Adibeo, whose anger flared. "Find out who it was," he ordered his guards. At the Olewu household, Aduk overheard the servants whispering about Tomowa's recent odd behavior. She grew more suspicious, confronting him after breakfast. "Tomowa, where were you last night?" she asked sharply. "Don't lie to me." Tomowa avoided her gaze. "I went to clear my head," he replied. Aduk wasn't convinced. "You're hiding something," she insisted, her voice low. "Be careful, brother. Secrets have a way of destroying families." Meanwhile, Ewatimi faced her own troubles. The Adibeo women questioned her about her nightly absences, and she struggled to maintain her lies. Every time she thought of Tomowa, her resolve to protect their secret grew stronger. As tensions rose in both families, the forbidden lovers knew they had to be more cautious. But the village's eyes were everywhere, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. One evening, as Tomowa and Ewatimi met in a hidden grove near the river, they failed to notice a shadow lurking nearby. It was Aduk, who had followed Tomowa out of curiosity. Her heart sank at what she saw. "Tomowa!" Aduk's voice rang out, startling both of them. Tomowa froze, panic spreading across his face. "What are you doing here?" Aduk demanded, her tone sharp. Ewatimi stepped back, her expression full of fear. "Aduk, please, let me explain," Tomowa pleaded, trying to calm his sister. But Aduk was furious. "Do you know what you're risking? If father finds out, it will destroy everything," she hissed. Ewatimi, feeling the weight of their forbidden love, stepped forward. "Please don't tell anyone," she begged. "We mean no harm. We just want to be together." Aduk's anger softened slightly, but her face remained tense. "I'll think about it," Aduk replied, turning to leave. "But if this continues, you're both doomed." As she disappeared into the darkness, Tomowa and Ewatimi knew their secret was no longer safe. Aduk wrestled with her conscience throughout the night. She loved her brother dearly but feared the consequences of his actions. By morning, she decided to confront him again. "You need to end this now," she warned him. Tomowa shook his head. "I can't, Aduk. I love her. You don't understand." His words stunned her. "Love? This isn't love, it's madness," she said, her voice trembling. "You're risking everything for a dream that can never be." Meanwhile, Ewatimi faced her own struggles. The Adibeo elders had grown suspicious of her continued absences and began questioning her relentlessly. She avoided their eyes, but the pressure was building. Meanwhile, Tomowa sat by the river, knowing the storm was about to hit. His love for Ewatimi had become a chain around his heart, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could bear the weight of it. The following day, news of the secret meetings between Tomowa and Ewatimi spread like wildfire. The entire village buzzed with gossip. Both families were under suspicion, and the pressure on Tomowa and Ewatimi grew heavier. Chief Olawu summoned his son. "What's going on, Tomowa?" he asked, his voice stern. "Why are you meeting with the Adibeo girl?" Tomowa's stomach twisted in fear. "I don't know what you mean, father," he lied, trying to keep his composure. But his father's eyes bored into him. "Don't lie to me. I know you've been seeing her. This is unacceptable." Tomowa's heart pounded as his father's words echoed in his ears. He knew he had to make a choice, either abandon Ewatimi or face the consequences. Tomowa went to see Ewatimi that night, determined to end their secret relationship. But when he saw her face, all his resolve crumbled. "I can't do it," he whispered, pulling her close. "I love you too much." Ewatimi looked at him, tears filling her eyes. "I love you too, but we can't go on like this," she said, her voice breaking. "It's too dangerous." As the night air grew thick with the weight of their emotions, Tomowa and Ewatimi stood facing each other, torn between love and fear. The village around them remained quiet, unaware of the storm brewing in the hearts of these two young lovers. "I can't live without you, Ewatimi," Tomowa said, his voice thick with emotion. But I can't let our families destroy us either. What do we do now? Iwatami wiped away a tear, her heart aching. We have to make a choice, Tomowa, she said softly. We can't keep sneaking around. The price is too high. Her words were like a dagger to his heart. They sat by the riverbank, staring at the water flowing past, unsure of what the future held. Maybe we can leave the village, Tomowa suggested, his voice filled with desperation. We can start anew somewhere else, away from everyone's eyes. Iwatami looked at him, torn. But what about our families? The ones who love us? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Tomowa's face darkened. Sometimes, we have to choose our happiness over everything else. The following morning, their world crashed down. Chief Adibeo and Chief Olawu had joined forces, suspicious that something was amiss between their children. The elders called for a village meeting, and every eye was fixed on Tomowa and Iwatami. In front of the entire village, Chief Adibeo stood and accused Tomowa. You've been deceiving my daughter, sneaking around like thieves in the night, he said loudly. The entire village gasped, and Iwatami's heart sank as her secret was exposed. Tomowa stood, his face pale. It wasn't like that, he began, but Adu cut him off. Don't lie, brother. We saw you, she shouted, her voice trembling with anger. You've brought dishonor upon us all. Iwatami's face flushed with shame as she tried to stand up for them. It was my choice too, she said, her voice breaking. But no one seemed to listen. The weight of the shame was unbearable. As the villagers whispered and pointed, Tomowa and Iwatami realized they had lost everything. They were no longer just in love, they were trapped in the consequences of their forbidden love. In the days that followed, things only worsened. Both families were in turmoil, with their honor and reputation at stake. Chief Adibeo and Chief Olawu demanded that Tomowa and Iwatami end their relationship. Tomowa felt as if his world was crumbling. I love you, he said to Iwatami one last time, his voice filled with sorrow. But we have to end this before it destroys us both. Iwatami stared at him, her heart breaking. I don't want to say goodbye, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. But I can't bear seeing you suffer. The villagers spoke in hushed tones as the two lovers walked away from each other, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that this was the end. Their love had caused them too much. As Iwatami returned to her family's compound, she knew her life would never be the same. Tomowa had made his choice, and now she had to make hers. The consequences of their forbidden love had forever changed their fates. Days turned into weeks, but the sorrow lingered. Tomowa and Iwatami tried to move on, but their hearts remained heavy with the burden of their choices. Tomowa had returned to his father's compound, his thoughts constantly drifting back to the girl he had loved so deeply. Iwatami, too, struggled. Her father, Chief Adibeo, became stricter, warning her that her future was at stake. You will marry the man I choose, he told her coldly, but Iwatami's heart wasn't in it. The thought of another man only reminded her of what she had lost. In the quiet of her room, she would cry, thinking of Tomowa's smile and the moments they had shared. Every corner of the village seemed to whisper their names, a reminder of the love that had been torn apart. Meanwhile, Tomowa's relationship with his father grew tense. You've brought disgrace upon our family, Chief Olawu scolded. Tomowa, unable to hold it in any longer, lashed out. I did what I felt was right, he said angrily. It was love, not disgrace. But his father's words rang in his ears. Love doesn't make you reckless. It doesn't destroy the ones who care for you. Tomowa began to wonder if he had made the right choice or if he would live with this regret forever. As time passed, both Tomowa and Iwatami found themselves drawn back to the river, the place where their love had begun. It was a place of memories, of stolen moments that now felt so distant. They hadn't seen each other for weeks, but the pull between them remained. Tomowa arrived first, sitting at the riverbank, his eyes gazing at the flowing water. He had never felt so lost. "What am I supposed to do now?" he whispered to himself. Iwatumi arrived soon after, her footsteps silent as she approached. She stood behind him, unsure of what to say. Tomowa turned at the sound of her presence, and their eyes met. Neither could speak at first, the words caught in their throats. Finally, Iwatumi broke the silence. "I've never stopped thinking about you," she said softly. "I can't escape what we had, Tomowa. It's like a part of me is missing." Tomowa stood up, his heart racing. "I feel the same way. But what can we do now? Everything's changed." The pain in his voice was unmistakable. The river, once a symbol of their love, now seemed to mock them, reminding them of what they had lost. As they stood there, surrounded by the quiet of the night, the decision loomed over them. Could they dare to defy their families once again? Could they stand up to the village's judgment and pursue the love that had brought them so much joy and so much pain? "I can't go on like this," Tomowa said, his voice trembling with determination. "I've already lost everything for you. I don't want to lose you too." Iwatumi felt a lump form in her throat. "But Tomowa, we can't just ignore the consequences. Our families won't let us be together. They won't understand." Her voice faltered, the fear creeping back in. "I don't care anymore," Tomowa said fiercely. "We can leave. We can find a place where no one knows us. We can be free." His eyes burned with a passion that she had never seen before. Iwatumi looked at him, her heart torn between fear and longing. Could she leave everything behind? Was the love they shared worth the risk? The answer was clear, and yet the fear of the unknown kept her from fully embracing it. "Let's run away," she whispered. "Let's be free, together." The decision was made. That night, under the cover of darkness, Tomowa and Iwatumi packed what little they could carry and fled the village. They didn't know where they would go, only that they couldn't stay in a place that had torn them. Where would these lovers, Tomowa and Iwatumi, go? How would they navigate the road ahead, and what awaits them in the distant land they seek? Danger, hope, or heartbreak, what lies at the end of their journey? Find out in the concluding part of this captivating tale.